Thank you for joining us. I'm Felicity Ezewuike. We begin the news in northwest Nigeria, where scores of people have been feared killed in Kukawa village of Maradu, local government area of Zamfara state, during airstrikes by the troops of the Nigerian army under Operation Hadarin Daji. This was as the army denied the killing of any civilian in the state, saying the military was fighting bandits and not the innocent people of the state. An indigene of the village, Musa Abubakar, who narrowly escaped, said his community was performing the Eid al-Fitr prayer on Wednesday when the Nigerian Air Force bombarded the area. Abubakar also said the bombardment led to the death of no fewer than 40 people. Now, in the days that followed the kidnapping of schoolgirls in Chibok, frenetic journalism ensued the world over. Television stations and newspapers from the United States to the United Kingdom followed the story. News Centre's Afua Hagen looks at the international coverage of the kidnapping.
The April 2014 kidnap of 276 girls from their school in Chibok by militant group Boko Haram immediately garnered global attention. A group of Nigerian women launched the social media campaign #BringBackOurGirls, which became a powerful worldwide protest, attracting the support of the then US First Lady Michelle Obama, the Nobel Peace Laureate Malala Yousafzai, and various celebrities. The then President of Nigeria, Goodluck Jonathan, received immediate offers of help from the US, Britain, France, and China. It was covered in newsrooms the world over. Karen Chambers is a journalist who worked on the story at the time. She says it took a while to convince senior figures in her newsroom that it was worth talking about.
Myself and some other women in the newsroom were encouraging essentially the male journalists, those who were in charge, to really take this seriously. And when I looked at other Western media coverage of the story, as a woman, I have to say I was horrified, because there just wasn't enough emphasis put on the fact that these were missing children. They were in an environment where they should be safe. They were in a school and they'd been taken by militants, and it was seen as, well, that's the end of that. And it's like, no, we need to start talking about this.
But whilst the coverage was necessary to highlight the plight of these 276 girls, it was a double-edged sword. The Western media viewed the kidnap of young women at school through the lens of gender-based violence and denial of education, rather than the lens of growing insecurity and banditry in Nigeria. The Chibok kidnapping happened during a period in which world leaders were focused on assaults on female education in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Syria and Iraq. This kidnapping fit that narrative, as does the group's name, which literally means Western education is forbidden. Anything else was written off. It made a superstar out of Boko Haram leader Abubakar Shekau, who was once just a fringe figure. It solidified the Boko Haram global brand, who thrived on the headlines. Looking back now, Chambers says Boko Haram became the story rather than the kidnapped girls.
They were seen as the new kids on the block. They were seen as perhaps the new ISIS, the new Al-Shabaab, and all of a sudden there was a hunt from Western media to find out, who are they, what are they about, and what do they stand for? And actually the story of the girls kind of got lost and kind of was missing within that piece.
10 years on, it's thought that around 90 girls taken from Chibok are still missing. The world's media have moved on, but in the meantime, banditry and kidnapping continues. Schools continue to be targeted, particularly in remote areas of the north, where security is lax and kidnappers can escape into vast forests. More than 1,500 school children have been abducted since 2014. Global coverage of heinous crimes such as the kidnap of 276 schoolgirls is always necessary to honour the victims and to spur governments to act. But making sure the reporting is accurate and doesn't just fit a narrative to truly tell a story is paramount. For News Central, I'm Afua Hagen.
To further discuss this, I'm joined by social commentator Ahmed Husseini And also joining me is DW West Africa correspondent Amaka Okoye, who has also covered insecurity in the northern Nigeria extensively. Thanks for joining us, gentleman and lady. We have gentlemen of the press, actually. Ahmed, let me begin with you. A decade since the Chibok schoolgirls kidnapping. Has anything really changed in your view?
One of the painful things of the Chibok tragedy is that we failed to learn any lesson since the 2014 abduction of school children in Chibok. And if you see that, just 4 years after Chibok, there was the Dapchi abduction, which was in 2018. And even recently, a month ago, there was an abduction in Kaduna. About 200 schoolgirls actually were abducted. They were released, they were released actually after 3 weeks. So, but the problem is we have failed to learn any lesson. There was not any incident response plan about what to do when schoolgirls have been abducted. There was nothing about strengthening security around schools. There's nothing about making our schools more secure. There's no any early warning and rapid response plan in place. No any security protocol arrangement around securing our schools, making our children safe. There's no lesson learned, and that to me is the most painful tragedy about the whole Chibok abductions thing, because 10 years after, a whole decade after, when we failed to learn any lesson, I don't think we were able to learn any lesson if we couldn't do anything in those 10 years. It's quite tragic.
Quite tragic indeed. Amaka, you went into Chibok yourself and have been in touch with some of the families since then. Would you say they've given up hope of ever being reunited with your daughters?
I suppose I must say that one of the things that, I came out from Chibok with is the strength of these parents. I've never seen, something of that nature. During the interviews, one of the things they continue to say to me is that we are hopeful that they are going to come back. Unfortunately, some of them are not alive anymore, to see this happen. One of them is Malam Alime Yanga, who told me, he had 2 of his girls. One came back, the other did not come back. And he said to me, I really hope that I'll be alive to see them back. But unfortunately, that did not happen. Another prominent woman is Yana. I'm sure most people will see her because she makes a lot of, media appearances. For her, there's something she does which is symbolic. She says every year she brings out the clothes of her daughter and she will wash the clothes, arrange them, put them back, because she believes strongly that, they are going to come back. I mean, it is one thing to be hopeful, but as you do know, Felicity, hope is not a strategy. The government really needs to make good on their promise, to bring these girls back. It's really frightening sometimes when you think of it, to imagine that it's a decade, 10 staggering years, and these girls, who are now women, by the way, most of them will be women now, are not yet back. It is really, really disheartening. They are hanging in there, I would say. I mean, sometimes they call me and then it's like, yes, we believe they will come one day somehow. That day, we don't know when it will be, Felicity, unfortunately.
Fortunate indeed. Ahmed, why does it appear the government cannot seem to get a grasp of kidnapping for ransom that many say has now become a business?
Yeah, so absolutely, because if you look at the trend of kidnapping and abduction since after the Chibok, many criminal and terror groups have taken inspiration from Boko Haram, and it has now become like a business model for most criminal groups operating in the northwest and northeast Nigeria. I think since 2014 to date, according to Save the Children, there are about 1,600, school children that have been abducted, actually children that have been abducted, over the past 10 years. And this has been increasing in frequency, as we've seen with the recent abductions in Kaduna and in other places. So the government has failed to actually, nip this thing in the bud because of the usual Nigerian problem of being complex and of being, taking things for granted, of just wishing our problem will just go away. There's that sentimental illusion that one day our problems will just disappear without doing anything, without holding any official to account. So this lack of accountability, I think, to me, is the biggest problem why government has been ineffective in, curtailing these cases. Because if we have strong accountability measures, then we should have plans in place. actually in place that will ensure that such abductions do not occur? Or if they occur, then what are we going to do? Do you have an incident response plan that if an abduction takes place, this is how we're going to respond? Or if we detect some terrorist activity or movement, these are the people that are going to be informed. These are the people that are going to be responsible, for actually countering them or for actually pursuing them. Or what kind of plan do we have in place to actively respond to these kind of emergencies? What contingency plan do we have in place? So we don't have that, and because we don't have that, because if we have those kind of plans and we have officials on whether security or public officials that are responsible, for each segment of those plans, and when there's any failure, we know who to hold accountable. But since there's no any plan in place, there's no any responsibility assignment, and then there's not any accountability in case of any failure. So I think this sums up the whole idea of or the whole approach that we have actually by people in government, that they just think that actually at some point some problem just actually disappear. But this has actually been it is quite a delusional way actually to go about with governance.
I mean, the government certainly needs to step up. There is no question about that. Amaka, let me come back to you. I mean, there was a report earlier by Afua about the media coverage of the Chibok girls kidnapping. What are you most worried about when it comes to the coverage of the continued kidnapping of school children in the media even today?
I think it's important that the media continues to point the light, and continue to report these incidents. One of the things that you do know is that, covering conflict is capital intensive. Some of these areas are also not accessible. There are, violent extremism still going on in some of this area. It is still volatile. But the media has, the duty to continue to point the light and to bring it into the limelight. But most importantly, to understand the subject matter. Sometimes, there are a lot of confusion in terms of reporting this. There is a lot of misinformation as well. Sometimes we don't also get our facts right, and understanding the context and perspective. I think that that's one of the things that I find very, very difficult. Sometimes when I consume, our media, you look at the stories, you clearly know that there are some background, information that we don't have, and it's important that both journalists and media organizations, both local and international, continue to cover it in context and reach the right people, and be sure that the narrative that we are pushing represents the story of the people. It's important that we don't leave out that aspect. Sometimes in the crave to tell the stories, you see a situation whereby the people are not quite represented, or the narrative that is being pushed is not the exact narrative. I understand the challenges of covering, conflicts and reports like this, because, like we do say, there are so many difficulties that you face in terms of accessibility and all of that. But it's important that we understand and continue also to do this report. That way it remains in the minds of the people. I was just talking to one of the parents, and I said, unfortunately, it looks like most of the world have moved on, but these parents have not moved on. It just looks like the world remembers when it is the anniversary. There's a lot of media attention, and after that, it goes silent again. But if the media continues to consistently cover these stories with understanding, with depth, in perspective, I think that these stories, at some point, perhaps, the government would know that it needs to, because the people are talking about it. And it's not just numbers, but I will put a face, when you put a face to this story, then it makes more sense. Both state and non-state actors will find, that they have a responsibility. We all do, actually, but yes, the media would continue to play that role where it brings the story continually to the face of the people, for positive change, hopefully, Felicity.
That's the hope, some change. Ahmed, what would you want the Nigerian people and the government to be willing as we commemorate 10 years of the kidnapping? What would you want them to have in mind?
I think this 10th anniversary should be our never again moment, trying to ensure that no community, no parent, no Nigerian child will have to go through tragedies like, the one we experienced in Chibok 10 years ago. So this should be, like a wake-up call for the authorities to actually sit up and ensure that These strategies that they've been working on for the past 10 years have not been working, because we've been seeing rising spate of abductions across the country, especially in the north and northwest. And this is actually exacerbating the out-of-school children crisis in northern Nigeria. You can see that Nigeria has about 20 million today out-of-school children, and I think 2 out of 3 of these are actually in the northeast and the northwest, where we have been having insecurity problem either by Boko Haram or by the criminal bandits. So this, you can imagine the impact it has on the future education and well-being of our children. And these guys are the same people that are going to actually graduate into becoming young people, and then becoming elderly people, and becoming leaders. So if you don't educate them, or if you continue to allow the education to be threatened by insecurity and other cultural and structural factors, then definitely you are not making, or you're not preparing for, or you're actually the future of the country is going to augur very badly actually in the very near future. So this should be a wake-up call for the government to put in place serious plans, especially about the self-school initiatives. The self-school initiative has been there since 2014 between the federal government and some international development partners, but there's not much has been done actually in ensuring that all those plans have been put into place. There have been some few movements around transferring some kids to some safer schools, but we have over 5,000 schools in the northeast alone, or in the 3 frontline Boko Haram states alone. And then to secure these schools, actually we need to actually ensure adequate security for the schools, adequate fencing, adequate security, deployment of security personnel, early detection.
You've said it all. The government needs to step up their game and improve security across board in the country. Thank you very much, Ahmed, for speaking with us. And Amaka, thank you as well.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome.
At least 27 fishermen have been reportedly killed and 3 others abducted by a faction of Boko Haram terrorist group on the border between Cameroon and Nigeria. The terrorists, suspected to be from the Buduma faction of the Boko Haram group, attacked a local fishing community harboring mostly fishermen from Nigeria at Island Kofia near Darak in the Republic of Cameroon. They tied their hands behind their backs before slaughtering them. The sources said the terrorists also abducted 3 other fishermen after accusing them of spying for ISWAP faction. The bodies of the fishermen were later recovered during a search and rescue operation by troops and their colleagues. On a very short break, the news continues after. Do stay with us. A total of 76 suspects have been arrested by the Plateau State Police Command in the course of the Eid al-Fitr celebration in different parts of the state. This was made known by the State Commissioner of Police, Steve Yabanet, during a press briefing at the command's headquarters in Jos, the Plateau State capital, North Central Nigeria. News Center's Chizoba Anyowe was there and completes the report.
It's exactly 1 week ago when a number of youth were paraded here by the Commissioner of Police for different crimes. Today, this group of young men and women have again been paraded for related crimes. With this trend, one begins to wonder if young people no longer engage in productive ventures rather than committing crime. According to the police boss in the state, the determination of the command and troops to rid Plateau of criminal elements gave rise to this feat.
I wish to inform you that our strategies deployed paid off. As a result of this, about 66 suspects were arrested at different locations within the state during the Salah celebration. There are some hoodlums who believe that they will make life difficult for the people of the state during the Salah celebration, but we say no, it's not going to be business as usual. And a lot of things were recovered, exhibits were recovered, and I list them as follows: 14 machetes, 8 daggers, large quantity of dry leaves suspected to be India hemp, 6 tricycles, and 4 motorcycles, and a bottle containing illicit substance.
The police commissioner further urged parents to always be on the lookout of their children and wards, as the police will not relent in its efforts in securing both lives and property in the state.
I wish to state emphatically that the Plateau State Police Command under my leadership will not tolerate any form of lawlessness. Parents and guardians are therefore enjoined and advised to pay close attention to their wards and children, as no lawbreakers will be spared.
For the arrest of these suspected armed robbers and cult members who are behind the illegal use of these drugs, arms and ammunition, the police said nothing will stop them from prosecution once interrogation is completed. In Jos for News Central, Chizoba Aniuwi.
Let's tell you that members of the Nollywood industry have held a candlelight night procession for victims of the boat mishap that led to the death of Junior Pope and other 4 crew members at the River Niger in Asaba, Delta State capital, South Nigeria. The candle night featured prayers for the souls of their colleagues and tributes. News Central's correspondent Austin Azu tells us more.
In Asaba, the capital of Delta State, which members of the Nollywood industries have converged here at Intaba Roundabout for the candlelight procession of their lost colleagues, especially the ace actor, Junior Pope, and other crew members that lost their lives due to the boat mishap at the River Niger 3 days ago. It has been a sad moment here in Asaba, the capital of Delta State, which has happened to become the hub of entertainment in Nigeria. Some of them have this to share about their lost colleagues.
It's a very big blow. We least expected this kind of thing to happen. You know, being it that we have some corpses that were yet to be buried, and this one again. And the way they died too. It's really unfortunate. But then, we can't question God.
Nobody I don't have anyone today on set that will play like the way he plays with us. It's painful. It's a very painful stuff. And this is a lesson to all Nollywood members, the producers, the directors, the PMs.
Well, we are calling for readjustment and for unity in order to, tackle the challenges that may, bring about this tragedy next time.
To speak further on this is Austin Azu, our correspondent who is live in Asaba. Thank you very much for joining us, Austin. You've had a very busy day, and those were quite touching remarks by Nollywood players there. What update do you have for us regarding this development story?
Right, good evening, Felicity. Of course, earlier on today, the last corpse was recovered from the river and was committed to Mother Earth according to the traditions of the land. But however, there were 2 corpses that were left behind at the moment, that of Junior Pope and one of the crew member who drowned in the water as well. So we were told that their body will be taken to the various states for the commitment. However, earlier on in the afternoon, some time ago, we heard about the producer of the movie who had voluntarily submitted herself to the police authority. Of course, you should know that this incident took place right there in the River Niger at the side that belongs to Anambra State. So obviously the police in Anambra State are in charge of this case and interrogation is ongoing. And in the same vein, of course, they have placed a ban on any movie production for now, just for the Nollywood industry to mourn their colleagues that passed on. Indeed, the cloud is quite heavy here in Asaba. Of course, Asaba is the capital of Nollywood at the moment. So we have a lot of them in Asaba at this point in time. So they have done choose to mourn their colleagues. Hopefully, as day goes by, the gate will be able to come together, make some decisions on the way forward. But everyone has been speaking about the death and the circumstances that led to the demise of this ace actor, especially because if he had worn a life jacket, this incident would have happened. So a lot of persons have been cautioned to be very careful, not to throw away caution, especially wipe.
Yes, you did capture some of those You captured some of those submissions in the report that we watched before you came on. There were reports earlier that, yes, I can hear you. I'm trying to find out from you how true there are social media videos alleging that some producers are flouting the directive of the guild to not engage in production until further notice. Can you confirm this?
Yes, what the AGM told us yesterday, and what some of the members have told us today, that for now it has been suspended pending the interrogation and pending when the AGM is going to release their decision on that placement of ban on the producer. Of course, what played out in that same, a lot of persons have actually, blamed blames to the producer, because if, for instance, like what he said, if he had been able to make adequate provision for those who are going on the water, that such incident would have happened. So really, it's a sad moment at this point in time.
Indeed,
and everyone is mourning the loss of their members, and even those who are their fans, they are all weeping.
All right, Austin, thank you very much for bringing us all the latest from Asaba. We appreciate your time.
You're most welcome.
A falling container has killed a woman in Ogudu area of Lagos on Friday. The Lagos State Traffic Management Authority said the woman was inside the car when the fully loaded 40-feet Mark-articulated truck fell on it, leading to her instant death. The agency's Director of Public Affairs and Enlightenment Department, Adebayo Taufik, said the truck driver and his motorboy ran away immediately after the tragedy. LASTMA officers are the first responders and passerby were involved in the rescue operations. Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu has ordered the indefinite closure of the Sumo Market in Lagos, announcing the government's decision on Thursday. The governor called on all property owners within the vicinity whose buildings are still standing to submit relevant particulars for integrity testing and regularization, stressing the need to bring down the building that falls short of this integrity ranking. Special Correspondent on Investigative Journalism, Marshal Anthony Ononye, has more.
The Lagos State Emergency Management Agency, LASEMA, has said the fire, which started on Tuesday in the Dosomu area of the Lagos State Island Market, had led to the collapse of 6 buildings in total. These buildings were all weakened by the fire. The permanent secretary of the agency, Dr. Olufemi Oke, who had earlier confirmed the figure in a statement Thursday, said 16 other buildings were seriously impacted by the inferno. This number is likely to increase as the dampening down of the fire continued on day 3 of the incident, which is expected to further impact on the integrity of other structures.
Well, 3 days after, the inferno might have been brought under control by the Lagos State Fire Service, but the fire seems to be catching up with other buildings that were originally not covered on the first day of the fire. What you have here are charred remains of market products that were being sold. These are fashion materials that were being sold in this section of the Dosomu market. What's interesting here today is scavengers seem to be having a field day here, as they seem to be scavenging on anything that they can lay their hands on, from metal rods, iron materials, window materials, and other kinds of market products consumed in the fire. The Lagos State government has said other buildings standing that might not have been covered by the fire would definitely go down.
With the demolition of the self-collapsed buildings to ground zero, cutting away of the rubbles had begun as supervised by the LASEMA boss.
Originally here on the Dosomu axis of the market, you had a very big clothing factory here. You see what I have in my hand, threads littered all over the place in the market. It's also been consumed by the fire. A very big warehouse here they had, and a factory making clothes in millions of dollars. You'd also find this charge generating set here, which is one of the major causes of the fire. Some eyewitness accounts has it that a member of a marketer was busy trying to refuel his generating set while it was still on. And then the fire caught up with the generating set and the gallon which was used to turn out the fuel, and there were questions as to whether he survived the inferno or not.
Meanwhile, the Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, had said Dosomu Market would be closed indefinitely. The governor, who said this on Thursday, added that the government would assist those affected. He, however, stressed that any property that did not conform to the state's regulations of construction would be pulled down.
At the moment, I can't think straight. It has affected me psychologically, emotionally. Anything I say here may be contradicting. Since Tuesday, I cannot sleep straight. I cannot think straight. I cannot do anything. No one around here can say it has not affected him or her, because directly or indirectly, we are all families here.
All that way they talk now, long story. If you building, if fire don't touch am, may they call the engineers and text it. Is it okay? I be no okay. If you not dey okay, now the engineer go talk. No be say just like that caterpillar go and scatter some people house. If they scatter many family house there, some people no get where to stay. And this Lagos state, na people land.
I want government to help us because this thing has much in our area.
The Dosomu fire incident is said to be one market fire too many, gulping billions of naira in its wake in market product values and structural property. This is as the state is seemingly becoming famous with market fires. In the coming days, we hope to beam more light on the fallout of this fire in relations to previous market fires. For News Central, Marshall Anthony Onaya.
A reminder now of our top stories tonight. Scores feared dead in Zamfara military airstrikes. Boko Haram insurgents killed 27 fishermen on Nigeria-Cameroon border. Container crushes woman to death in Lagos. Police shoot dead 2 Ethiopian regional militias. Now, 2 suspected members of an Ethiopian regional militia plotting an attack died on Friday along with a civilian during a shootout with police. The Fano self-defense militia took up arms against government forces that had formerly supported in the Amara region a year ago. In February, Parliament extended a state of emergency imposed last August in Amara, the country's second most populous region with 23 million people, in an attempt to quell a Fano insurgency. The Fanos and other Amaras felt betrayed by a peace agreement signed in November 2022 by the government and Tigrayan rebels, longtime foes of Amara nationalists who claim parts of Ethiopia's northernmost region as their ancestral lands. The Business Desk has today's business stories.
Business news in association with Money Master PSB, the easy way to master your money.
Welcome to Business News. South Africa's state-owned power utility Eskom is engaging in discussions with government ministries regarding private and foreign funding options for a 390 billion rand, which is approximately $21 billion expansion of its transmission network. This expansion is necessary as more renewable generation comes online. Eskom, which supplies over 80% of the country's electricity, has struggled to meet demand, resulting in frequent blackouts that have negatively impacted the economy. The utility plans to build 14,218 kilometers of power lines over the next decade, more than 3 times the amount installed in the past 10 years. The ongoing discussions with government ministries include exploring the use of funds pledged by rich nations for an energy transition and considering private sources of funding. And in Nigeria, the Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu, has expressed confidence that Nigeria will generate 6,000 megawatts of electricity within the next 6 months. The country currently generates and transmits over 4,000 megawatts, with distribution issues being the main challenge. Adelabu highlighted the government's commitment to addressing the power sector's challenges and increasing electricity generation. The minister also emphasized the need to optimize the nation's installed capacity of 13,000 megawatts across hydropower and thermal plants. Finally, the Ghana Private Road Transport Union, GPRTU, and the Ghana Road Transport Coordinating Council, GRTCC, have jointly advised commuters to refrain from paying any unapproved new transport fares until they are officially approved. This advisory comes in response to the recent announcement by the Transport Operators Union and the Concerned Drivers Association of Ghana regarding a 30% increase in transport fares starting from Saturday, April 13. However, in a jointly issued press release, the GPRTU and the GRTCC attributed this fare increase to the government's failure to adequately address pending grievances. Both organizations reiterated that any fare increment outside the parameters set by the administrative instrument governing the review of public transport fares is considered illegal and should be disregarded by commuters. These are the business stories at this hour. Thank you for watching. I am Perpetua Fasami Peter. The news continues shortly. Bye for now.
And that's all tonight. But before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories. Boko Haram insurgents killed 27 fishermen on Nigeria-Cameroon border. UN warns of worsening humanitarian crisis in Sudan. Container crushes woman to death in Lagos. Police shoot dead 2 Ethiopian regional militias. Do send your eyewitness report to the number showing now on your screen. You can follow us on social media at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and on YouTube. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good night.